All right, everybody, welcome back to the Tuesday show. And yeah, this is definitely a special one here. We have some very special guests coming on. So let's go ahead and bring them both on over here. We have Tom and Tony Cannon here on the Tuesday show. How you guys doing?
Great.
Doing well.
Yeah, glad to be on. I've watched you guys on and off for, years. This is my first appearance, so I'm ready. Let's go.
Well, welcome to the show.
Well, speaking of first appearances, before we talk about your guys' backstory and stuff, I just wanted to say I got a Facebook notification that today, 10 years ago, was the first time that I commentated EVO. Shout outs to that. I thought that was kind of cute.
Anniversaries. That is cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this man a cake.
Yeah. Obviously, that's been a huge part of my career. So we'll talk about sort of the history of EVO. We'll talk about some of the stuff that has gone on with it over the past year or so. We'll talk about what's going on now, and then also what's going on in the future. But let's start out by talking a little bit about you two when it comes to getting involved in fighting games and in the FGC in the first place. How did that begin?
Man, so do you want to go first, Tony? Go for it.
No, you go for it. I mean, you're...
Okay, yeah.
Hit with the Usenet.
Yeah, okay. So Tony and I got into fighting games like right in the first Street Fighter 2 when it landed in like our local putt-putt. And we were in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is far from a hot spot.
Oh.
But we had our local tournament scene, and we thought we were, hot stuff.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, like everybody else at the time. And then, let's see. We went to school, college, and pre-internet days or pre-World Wide Web, there were like text-based message boards where like people from all over the country would just basically talk up how good they were at Street Fighter and talk strategy and stuff. And it was a lot of egos, ours included. And so like we just decided to like, hey, let's put up or shut up, and like everybody agreed to come to this arcade and we'll do like a real tournament. And that ended up being like B3 back in like 1992 or something.
Yeah.
3, 4 in the mid 90s, right? So that was like a little tournament. We had like players from NorCal, SoCal,
Canada,
Chicago, New York, Canada, and then randomly 4 guys from Kuwait who showed up and were actually surprisingly good. And that was just sort of like caught the tournament TO bug, where it was just really cool to bring players together and like watch and see what happened. And so from there, it's just sort of been, slow, steady rumble of like, hey, can we do it bigger? Can we do it better? And then the main inflection point there was in 2002, where we did the first EVO. And the goal of EVO was like, tournament scene was growing, but arcades were unfortunately dying, at least in the US. And so we're like, hey, can we do this like cool tournament outside of an arcade? And then, 20 years of slow organic growth leads to where EVO is today. We've been involved with fighting games, like it's been a huge part of both of our lives for all of those 20 years and beyond. It's just such a unique thing in gaming. Like I'm going deep on Strive now, and like, God, the feels that you have, the intensity of the feels that you have when you're in a hype match, like there's nothing like it. So just want to keep doing what we can to, promote the genre and push it forward.
Had you guys done something like that before, organize an event? I'm curious, like where you got the idea to actually do that. That's quite a step in a small community like that.
Yeah, not really. I mean, we're organized. I mean, like we were sort of older than everyone. Like we were early 20s in the arcade, and everyone else was like 14, 15 or younger. And so if someone was going to run the tournament, like someone was going to get all these people on the internet together to do something, it was probably going to be us. And so we just sort of stepped up and learned as we went the whole way. Like we were the closest thing we got to organized competition was like sports as a kid. And so we knew what a bracket was. We knew what organized competition was, right? But B3 was the first event where we really handled the promotion and the organization and how we're going to get prizes, and oh my God, how are we going to convince this arcade that we're going to like take over this corner and just like, oh, trust me, guys, it's going to be cash flow positive for you because we'll be feeding quarters all day. And it was a learning experience, and that's pretty much been our experience the whole way, right?
And
recording every step,
recording everything on VHS.
Oh yeah, that was a good. Yeah, so B4, well, B3 was kind of an experiment, but B4 was the first one where we had a really great system for like capturing all the footage. And then at the time, you had to go into a lab with all these professional VHS decks, right? So you have like 4 decks, and you're switching these big tapes in and cutting, and like literally cutting, and then try to sell it on the internet. Like, hey, mail me $20. I promise you I'll mail you 4 VHS tapes, right? Like, so
most people got their tapes. Most people.
Yeah. Eventually got their tapes, right?
Yeah.
I definitely always got my DVDs.
Yeah.
Once it was on DVD.
Oh, it was a well-oiled machine by then.
Yeah.
They had fulfillment services and everything. It was great. Yeah, but back in the day, it was all homebrew.
All right. So it has changed a lot, right? I don't know that we have time to go through the entire history of EVO, which is very, very long and storied.
It could be an
and there's
entire
just a lot of stuff to say. Yeah.
For sure.
Before we go on, I just want to ask one question. Who won more between the two of you when you guys played? That's what I want to know.
Oh, it was Tom. Like, the first tournament we played in, like, he got first, and I got second. He played Daltham and Cheap. He pulled out new tech, right? Because people didn't know about deep hits or anything. Deep hits. So I'd jump in with forward, and then he would tick throw it. He'd like take the hit and then throw me on recovery. Like, what is this bullshit? Like, no. So and that was pretty much the legacy. Like, we went to school in California and hit Sunnyvale Golfland pretty early in our career, and Tom was on the grind. He was like taking the bus from school to get to Sunnyvale Golfland to like Masters Chun-Li, and I was like, nah. I'm not that dedicated. So I put my efforts more into like event organizing and running and stuff like that, and
Cool.
and Tom was on the grind a lot more than me.
Nice.
Yep.
Fair enough. All right, cool. Well, you want to move on to talk about
Yeah.
recent history for EVO? Okay, cool. So last year there was a pandemic. Well, maybe that's the wrong
Still is.
tense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Should conjugate that differently. There's been a pandemic lately, and that of course changed plans for EVO. So you guys decided to do EVO Online. Before we talk about later cancellation of that, I'm very curious to know how that went. Putting all of your efforts away from this in-person event, which takes a tremendous amount of planning, and then instead going into the online planning, which I'm sure also takes a lot of planning, but maybe of a different kind. How did that go?
Yeah, I think the mindset there was seeing how the pandemic was hitting like locals and regionals and all the staff and the people who, like, it's not only their summer, but it's part or their entire livelihood, right? And so we wanted to do something to like inject a little fighting game back into the summer, and online was of course the only choice. And then that was something that was very new to us, and so we leveraged the experts, like working with Sag and his team, people who have run online events in the past, to say, hey, how can we pull this off? And they put together a great plan for us. And we were locked and loaded and ready to go. Felt really good about things, and then I'm tossing it back to you for the next step, I guess. But obviously things didn't go as planned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, things did not go as planned. You guys ended up canceling. And that came in the wake of revelations about what happened with Joey, Mr. Wizard. And that was even in the context of a very fraught summer with all sorts of other things going on as well, not just the pandemic, of course, but like justice issues and the like. That was a very active and very, very difficult time in many ways. So what, I guess I should narrate a little bit more. People began to pull out. Some of the commentators said that they wouldn't go. Mm-hmm. Some of the players said so. People who were involved in running things said so. It sort of began to fall apart, it felt like. What was that process like for you? And just go into, how you experienced it.
Yeah, that was a pretty tough summer for all the reasons that you mentioned. As we were grappling with some of the things that were coming out around the community and trying to figure out how can we respond, how can we like be part of the conversation to have those allegations hit like Joey, a member of our team, was really painful, and the behavior there was completely unacceptable. Have a lot of sympathy for people who've come out and come forward with their stories. And so when we were hit with that, the conversation immediately shifted to, like, of course EVO Online is canceled because this is not how we want to go into this kind of an event at all, for ourselves or for our partners. And so we immediately shifted to, let's get to the bottom of this and clean up our own house, essentially. And so we've gone through the process, which is now complete, of completely separating, Joey from EVO. So he's no longer participating in the company in any way whatsoever. He will not reap any benefits from what EVO does now or in the future, and that's done deal. And so now that we put that behind us, we've really focused on working with our new team and focusing on what EVO has always been about, right? Which is building this unique experience that showcases what's cool about fighting games, and really how can we do a better job of making sure that we are holding ourselves to the highest standard and creating intentionally a safe environment for all of our attendees and fans.
Yeah, he was obviously integral to planning and running EVO, and had, my understanding at least is that he had been taking the lead on that for quite some time. How was it for you guys in not just the sort of emotional side of having somebody who did this kind of stuff, but in not having this third team member anymore? It's just you two. Like, how was that process? Yeah,
so a little bit about that. Like, EVO is much bigger than like the three of us back then, or you even look at like Mark and Seg and the Game Gen guys have been like really valued partners who have carried a ton of weight for years. And then you look at like our TOs who we've been working with for years, like all of our volunteers. Like, it takes a whole lot. It's the whole community that puts on EVO, and so there was an impact, right? When you have a leader in the company who you have to find a way to rework the way that things work. But the impact wasn't maybe as big as you might think, because the people that you see on camera over and over and over again are just sort of the tip of the iceberg of like the whole big team that runs EVO. And one thing that was great to see was the way that like the broader EVO team sort of came together, and we talked about this, and people were really, really honest about sharing how this was impacting them. And we tried our best to listen and like take those thoughts into account as we rebuilt. So yeah, like the operational side, like how do we keep doing this stuff? That was actually really straightforward. It was more of how do we like be a little bit self-reflective and figure out how we can all be better, because EVO attendees put a lot of trust in us, and we take it very seriously. We want to live up to that trust.
Okay. I'm curious how things are going now. Obviously, there's been further changes, or maybe that was accompanying in how things changed. But what's leadership like at this point? Like, how are you guys in control? Like, I'm very curious how things are structured.
Is Big Daddy Sony running the show,
right.
or are you guys still running? We need to know.
Cut right through it. Ask the question you need to ask. No, so one of the things, one of the things that's been clear for us for a long time is that we're sort of hitting an inflection point of organic growth. Like Tom talked about 20 years of organic growth, and EVO is like one of the most cherished esports events for the fighting game community. But it's really big. It's so big that it's hard to do an excellent job at everything you want to do on sort of borrowed time, everyone's favorite side project, right? And I think through the years, there have been times where I think we didn't meet my expectation of ways where we could have done better, and we'd been thinking about how do we bring on a really strong partner that could just bring a level of sophistication and maturity to the scene. And there have been those opportunities along the way where people have been like, hey, we can help you. And it's always come with this and this is how you'll succeed in the future because we're going to change everything that made you successful in the past. Like that open bracket you run, that's a pure cost. The way forward is exhibitions or something. And so we've never really taken it seriously, right? I think in Sony, we found a partner who recognized that what we had was unique in esports and magical, and we really understood it. And they were interested in coming in to amplify it and take it to the next level, right? And provide the benefits that they provide as a very large company that's already super invested in fighting games, right? Like Sony is a really good platform for running. You guys saw the thread about maybe we can switch to PCs.
Oh, yeah.
And how many TOs were like, are you kidding me? Like the community has embraced the PlayStation console, and it's part of our shared infrastructure through gaming gen and other mechanisms. And that just speaks to Sony's commitment. So it made a really good partnership opportunity, right? And we worked with them in 2019. You saw they were our title sponsor. And so it's not a snap decision, right? This is something that we've been sort of working toward. And now, given the opportunity to reset for 2021 leading into 2022, it just made a lot lot of sense.
Yeah. And our involvement, if I can jump in real fast, because David, you asked about like our involvement. Essentially, we are like really, really trusted advisors. So there's, do we have the power to make decisions? Technically, no, but we have a whole lot of influence. So there's a small advisory board that basically, advises on like long-term strategy and also like short-term, like what are we doing? Like, are we doing this showcase thing or not? Why would it make sense? And what I found like really great is that the team, the broader EVO team, Chris is on this team, Mark's on this team, and also folks from Sony and RTS, they actually listen to us. That sounds pretty basic, but a lot of these times it's like, hey, yeah, you guys can come on as advisors, and then technically they don't have to listen to you, but this team like really, really does, even proactively, like, hey, what do Tom and Tony think about this? And they were upfront, like they wouldn't do the deal if we weren't going to be involved in this role, because they know there's a small number of people who kind of live and breathe this. We know why EVO is shaped in this particular way, and to continue EVO in the same, like a bigger, better version of what EVO genuinely is, they need our perspectives and they value it. So I'm really happy with the way that the partnership is shaping up. I think we have a great team, and excited to talk about the showcase.
Yeah. I mean, one quick question before we jump to the showcase. I mean, obviously, knock on wood and everything, when EVO comes back in 2022, I mean, is it going to be like a lot of the same people? Like, obviously, I see Nothing Excess in the chat here. He's always been kind of one of the lead, TOs and stuff like that. Is it going to be a lot of the same people helping run a lot of the stuff at a live event?
Yeah, Tony, that's your department. You want to?
Yeah, I mean that's what you would expect, right? And so like Sony and RTS aren't coming in to be like, let's change everything about your event. It's like, tell us how your event runs and how we can help make it more successful, right? And one of the things we told them was like, hey, here's our staff. It tiers like this, and Andreas and Rachel are sort of running the show, and then they have a fleet of trusted TOs underneath them. Who have been running the show for like 8 years, and they know their job and they work really well together, and they have a fleet of judges they've hired, and then 200 volunteer judges. And this is what it takes to run the machinery, right? And like, sweet, what can we do to make that better? Maybe we can, I'm not going to give you any ideas because that turns into a promise, but we've already talked about ways where they can bring something to the table to really help either the attendee experience or the spectator experience at the live event. Okay. But it's what Tom said, like the people who ran EVO in the past are like big team of like probably over 500 people if you get all the way down to it, volunteer judges. Those are the same people who are going to be running like 22 and beyond.
Yeah, and just to be like hyper clear, like all the work that we've been doing with like online and the showcase, all of that is leading up to like, let's get back to live events, large scale live events in 2022.
And real quick before we move on, I do have just a quick question. When we come back to live events, are we going to see Smash?
Yeah, Smash has been like part of some of like the most iconic EVO moments over the past few years. We have a long history of Smash. Would love to continue to work with Smash. It didn't work out this year, but we we would love to have Smash in the future, and just again to be hyper clear, like everyone involved with EVO is aligned that like we're an event for all fighting games, regardless of platform, and on the side we have an equally strong commitment to open tournaments, just as we had before. So none of that is changing. Didn't work out this year. Hopefully it can later.
Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl being there.
SpongeBob is OP.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk about what was announced today, and let's talk about what's going to be happening in the future. Can you guys break it down?
Yeah. So the showcase was actually I think it was Seg's idea in the beginning, which is, hey, online tournaments are great, and the netcode for games is getting better, right? But there's still it's hard to have a really great competitive event around the world online. It's just like there's only so much netcode can do, right? And so let's have a separate event that is like an exhibition but kind of like a finals, right? And so you're taking all of these champions from the regional tournaments, bring them together in a live event, which is more of a showcase of talent, right? We don't want to call this like the EVO World Champion, because it's not the open event that anyone can participate in that trickles up. Like accessibility to the event isn't really open to everyone in the world, right? Some regions aren't represented. Some people might not have bad netcode, right? But just, hey, all these people won all these regional tournaments that have like thousands of competitors, and bringing them all under one umbrella to determine the champion of champions almost, right? That's going to be super hype, right? And we can just blow the doors off of it, and it can add that capstone to the online season. And so that's what it's really all about. It's about getting everyone, the proven players, under one roof to determine who's the best one on that day.
Yeah, it's kind of like a compromise between what we really want to do, which is massive in live events like we have, and what's possible, right? So, and I talked before about player safety. There are honestly some compromises that we're making that we're not thrilled about, but player safety is number one. And so we're going to be at a pretty sweet venue, which is the UFC Apex. So that's like their arena that they've constructed for UFC matches in Vegas, and that's part of the value that like a Sony can bring, is like we can actually talk to those people in the tournament calls.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're not going to have a live audience. We tried really hard to get that done, but looking at the way things are going, it just didn't seem like we could pull it off and guarantee people's safety. But like Tony said, this is our chance to see what we can do to really tell the stories and have a great showcase of talent in a live setting, which will be a long time coming. I'm glad that locals are popping up, but we want to sort of throw our hat in the ring and say, hey, we're here too.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, Vegas, I went to Vegas last month with my family. Like, it's open, and I assume has been for a while, and we're all vaccinated. We're still masking up anyway. Nobody else is masking up in that city. Like, they were not taking it seriously for sure. So as much as I think it would be great to have an in-person a live audience, I get it. That makes sense. And it's hard to know how things are going to go in November.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, has there been any like difficulties? I mean, I'm sure this is just starting, but like trying to fly out some of the players. Like I know, like for Brazil region, we've had a history of they just won't give them the visas to travel and such like that. I mean, have you guys even began tackling that kind of a situation yet?
I don't think we're not there yet. Like, yeah, we're going to do our best, of course. But it's hard to say.
Yeah.
We don't even know who the players are.
Right. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, talk to me a little bit about the regions, right? So you mentioned that there are regions. The regions are basically and some of them are then there are sub-regions, but they are basically East Asia, Latin America, North America, Europe. So as you mentioned, that doesn't include everybody, right? There are people in Australia, Africa, the Middle East, Pakistan, right? That aren't involved here. What's the reason for picking the regions that you did?
There's a balancing act in a lot of this. One is how many tournaments can we run? There's like what for the game that we're running, how good is the netcode and how does the game feel? Like, for some games we split North America up and some we didn't, right? There's the local laws in the region, right? There's our ability to operate in the region. There's a lot that goes into it. We tried to strike the balance of being as inclusive as we could globally without just like blowing the doors off the budget.
Right.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that there are just inherently going to be limitations in that. Just I was curious about how that went. Okay. Let's talk too about the games that were chosen. So it's Mortal Kombat 11, Street Fighter 5, Tekken 7, Guilty Gear Strive. Skullgirls recently put in as an official main EVO title. Can you talk to me about how that choice was made?
Yeah. So we like the number 5. That's sort of been traditional. Like, we're trying to replicate kind of the feel of like an EVO Sunday, where we have 5 titles, and we're always looking at a variety of factors, like what number 1 is like what has heat in the community, what are people playing, what are people excited by. We also want a lineup that reflects sort of the diversity of play in the fighting game genre. So all those things factor into the mix. And then this is how it shook out this year. Every year there's always like titles where we're like, man, we wish we could include it. We did that in past years, and maybe like 10 years ago we're like, hey, there's a bar, and if you're above the bar you're in, and it resulted in people in that ballroom like Sunday evening at 3 a.m. just like a bunch of zombies in the room. So we're like, okay, it's got to be 5. And so that's how it turned out this year. But Skullgirls gets their shot. This is the
longest time coming. The longest time coming for Skullgirls. Yeah.
Hey, look,
I'm happy that they're there. Yeah.
They just had a season 1. They just came out with. I don't know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Just season 1, brand new content here. So.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the history there being that they were very close to getting in the auction year, of course, getting beaten out by Melee. And then last year were announced as an official game for the online, which didn't end up happening either. So they're finally in. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, they made it.
Yeah.
So I know that you guys said you are not going to have live guests, but is there a possibility that people could pay for cardboard cutouts to be put in the stands like baseball games? Because I would absolutely pay $50 to have a cardboard cutout Tupperware in the stands.
This is actually genius. There are people who have streaks of going to EVO every single year.
It's true.
Yeah, I want to be at
They
EVO.
could be there, kind of.
I think Chris has he has like an aversion to those signs, those big signs that are like 20 by 20.
Get a sense
I'll
of
bring
humor,
it up with
man.
him. I'll bring it up with him.
This has to happen.
I think that is our shot caller here. So all of your
I
lobbying is
won't say no, but I'm not optimistic. But I'll ask him.
I already see Seg in the chat with no.
I would absolutely buy one. I'm
Yeah,
not
for
kidding at
sure.
all. Yeah.
You guys would be thousandaires off this. This
I mean,
is like,
what about?
you're welcome.
Maybe
I'll
we
take
could
my
do
10% cut, thanks.
the live video feed in the audience, like they do at like basketball games or whatever like that. So
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But like a lot of people in the chat are
Discord
saying
call
you
in.
probably have 7 Jabali's there then as a result. So
At
probably.
least minimum 7.
All right. Well, is there anything else about the showcase that we haven't talked about that you guys would like to discuss?
No, I mean James asked about. He had a theory about maybe, and I think David, you said something about like a new tradition, and so we're also looking into 2022, and obviously we want the return of the live event, the big event, and we're thinking about how does online and things like the showcase contribute to creating sort of more EVO, right? Like EVO was hype for like 4 days, right? And the time leading up to it, right? But fighting games are getting really good online, and I think the community is getting both broader into sort of the diversity of fighting games and just more people who are interested in it. So how can we create sort of a more present feeling of EVO, right? Like basketball, it's not literally like June. It like starts in October and then it goes to June, right? And so how can we bring like online in the showcase and the offline event and create like a really great EVO season almost?
Yeah, I think like this past say 12 months has been really interesting because we were forced online, and there's some good things about online and some bad things, right? I think for 2022 we are trying to figure out, and I think the FGC needs to figure out, like what do we think about online like going forward. I definitely think it would be a mistake to like lean away from live events. Live events are totally incredible and unique, right? So given if we're going to go back to live events, I think we should, like, what's the role of online tournaments? And so, what we're doing with EVO Online and the showcase and coming back big in 22, we're trying to like experiment with different things and see what lands, see what hits. And so, plus one to all Tony said, like, if we can have like other things going on at different times of the year that ladders up into the big thing in Vegas, that would feel good. We're also taking another look at Japan. We are committed to doing EVO Japan. This year, this coming like usual timing of February is probably not going to work out for obvious reasons. But we're working with the game publishers, having great conversations there, and trying to figure out like what makes sense to keep that Japanese event going. So we got a lot of things that we're playing around with, and I think over the next year you're going to see us do some new stuff. Some stuff will hit, some stuff won't, and we'll throw it away. But we're trying to envision like a world where you have both, like these big regional events, not just EVO, but like let's have all the regionals come back because they're sick, and then how do we augment that with like online or exhibitions or whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm curious what you guys think of this. I've often compared this argument of offline versus online, similar to the arcade to the console transition, which you guys kind of spearheaded at EVO. I'm wondering, I still have the video on a hard drive somewhere of you with the hammer on the joystick and everything like that. Maybe I'll find that at one point in time. But, do you feel like that's kind of a similar situation? Like, do you kind of see some similar parallels with that transition?
I actually don't. I think that I understand the progression you're making, and it makes sense, but I think that's the wrong lesson because like we were forced out of arcades. And it took us, gosh, a good 4 years to finally get an out of arcade experience that was as good as an arcade event. Yeah. And then it was like an upgrade. I don't think that happens with online. There are things that you get at a live event that you're never going to get in an online experience. And so I think like if 5 years from now, like there are just as many tournaments or more tournaments, but they're all online and offline, I think we will have lost something like essential.
Right.
Yeah, I think poker is a really great example. I keep comparing fighting games to poker, and like you have online poker, and it has a role, and like you're not going to sit at 8 live tables at once, right? But a lot of people sit at 8. Like online has something to offer, but it's not going to replace live poker. I mean, it's just never right. It's a different experience. Sort of the fidelity and the quality is just they're not comparable. They're the same thing, but they're really different experiences, right? Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. Speaking of fighting games, I heard that you guys are working on one. What's the deal? Is that happening still?
Yeah, you're gonna get the hand on this one. Yeah, unfortunately, here to talk about EVO. So
you got it. Yeah. Sure.
I know you had to try. It was a good try.
Worth a try.
Had to try.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys.
All right,
hey,
you know what? Hang on a second. All right, I've turned off the microphone to the stream now. You guys can totally tell us about a bunch of stuff right now. So
we're off air. Well, thanks. This went really well.
So what's going on with the? What's going on with the game? No.
Hey, James, ask him your question that you ask everybody before they go.
Oh yeah, actually, this is a good one because I actually don't know the answer to this question. Where did inkblot and ponder come from? The handles, where did those come from?
Yeah, so mine, I'm left-handed. So in grade school, you write with a pen and you leave a trail of smudges behind you, right? So inkblot.
That's cool. That's a cool.
That actually is.
Thank you.
Yeah. I had another handle that I used on Usenet, and it didn't fit in the IRC nick limit, so I had to come up with something shorter, and so I came up with Ponder.
What are you pondering?
Wait, what was the old? Yeah, what was the old one though?
I think it was Wanderer. WANDER. Yeah, it's like 8 letters. I don't remember.
Those are actually both cool names too. And I will also say that Pro Tom Cannon is also excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that one. That was like one of the old Sunnyvale Golfland dudes years ago. But yeah, I like that one.
Hey, thanks a lot for coming on and talking with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, thanks for the
Happy to be
opportunity.
here. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Take care, guys.
Hey, when that fighting game gets ready to come out, you're more than welcome to come back on here and talk about it.
Yeah.
More than welcome.
Good. Okay,
All right.
we can
We'll see
make
you.
that happen.
We'll see you in 5 years.
I'm still trying. Oh, you're relentless. Okay, bye, guys.
See you.
All right. Peace.